All right, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has warned that the country will be able to reach anywhere in Iran should the need arise.
Well, on this front, of course, in a speech to new military officers, Netanyahu said that Israel has unprecedented freedom of action following its recent airstrikes against Iran.
Israel today has more freedom of action in Iran than ever. We can reach any place in Iran as necessary. The supreme goal I gave to the Israel Defense Forces and the security branches is to prevent Iran from achieving a nuclear weapon.
Meanwhile, Israel continues to pound Lebanon. Strikes hit Baalbek, a city situated in the east of Lebanon, as well as the southern city. This after Israel issued evacuation calls for both the areas.
On the other hand, Israeli emergency services said a rocket launched from Lebanon killed 2 people in Olive Grove in northern Israel on Thursday, bringing the day's death toll to 7. Shifting our focus to Gaza now, a large explosion rang out over the strip on Thursday night.
Earlier in the day, in the occupied West Bank, 3 Palestinians, including a child, were killed by Israel. The Israeli army said it was conducting an operation targeting terrorist infrastructure in Tulkarm's Nur Shams refugee camp. A medical clinic operated by Palestinian refugee agency UNRWA was destroyed during the raid in the camp, and some roads were razed. Al-Quds Brigades, which is the armed wing of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad movement, said in a statement that they detonated a highly explosive bomb in a military bulldozer to thwart the Israeli army's raid.
It comes as US diplomats were in the region pushing for a ceasefire in both Lebanon and Gaza, hoping to wind down the wars in West Asia as the Biden administration enters its final months. Senior White House aides Brett McGurk and Amos Hochstein were in Israel on Thursday and held talks with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and senior officials of Israel.
Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has called on Israel to facilitate a second round of vaccinations in Gaza. The first round was completed and the second round, essential to build up immunity, began as scheduled on the 14th of October before being paused due to intense bombardment by Israel.
Speaking of Lebanon, Blinken said the negotiations have made good progress towards a deal that would indeed bring a ceasefire.
Right now, we have made good progress on those understandings. We still have more work to do, but that's what's necessary to get us to a diplomatic resolution, including through a ceasefire.
And for more on this, our Pakistan Bureau Chief Anas Malik has sent us this report from Tehran. Listen to this.
Well, 1 week since Israel's attack on Iran, and life seems to be at normalcy, though the residents believe that the truth lies somewhere in between what the Irani side has said and the Israeli side has said. With that being said, Friday is an important day because expectedly is when Ayatollah, the supreme leader, is to make an appearance, likely to make an appearance during the Friday prayers, and if he does and what he says will define the Iranian policy going forward, especially amidst chants of an incoming Iranian response. Also, what will define Iran's response is the prospects of ceasefire in Lebanon. In case if that materializes, then the prospects of an Iranian response are very, very low. That being said, people here, they have mixed emotions, but all in all, they believe that the new government led by Dr. Pezeshkian would do all what it has to make sure that Iran's relationship with the neighborhood and the extended neighborhood are better. The impact of it can be felt and should be felt for the common citizens of Iran. Anas Malik in Tehran in Iran for WION World is One.
And to discuss this further, we're now being joined by Mr. Edward P. Joseph, who is joining us from Washington, D.C. He's a senior fellow at the Johns Hopkins University, also the current executive director of the National Council on U.S.-Libya Relations. So thank you so much for joining us on World DNA.
Good to be with you again.
Now, Mr. Joseph, when Netanyahu says that Israel has absolute freedom to go anywhere in Iran, What do you reckon he is implying? Does this hint towards possibly targeting Iran's nuclear infrastructure?
I think what he's hinting at is that it would be unwise for Iran to launch another strike on Israel after Iran launched almost 200 ballistic missiles at Israel on October 1st. And that produced the Israeli retaliatory action, which, as Prime Minister Netanyahu explained, was not only successful in that Israeli jets went into Iranian airspace and also fired from nearby Iraqi airspace, and that's over 1,000 miles from Israel, and that's exposing fighter jets that require refueling to Iranian air defense systems, including Russian-supplied air defense systems. None of those proved effective in this retaliatory strike, and on top of that, Israel has taken them out, has taken out those air defense systems, including the ones that Russia supplied that were considered advanced. And in addition to that, apparently Israel has crippled part of Iran's missile production facility, particularly the one in Parchin that produces the motors that missiles require. So all that means is that what Prime Minister Netanyahu is signaling is that Iran is vulnerable here. If it strikes again, Israel will have indeed more freedom of maneuver, and Iran will have less of a cushion of missiles to strike Israel with if they go to complete escalation. Please.
Mr. Joseph, if I'll just take what Haim asked you earlier, I'll take that and string it along with something that you mentioned, that Israel indeed did take out several of Iran's air defense systems, the Russian ones, the S-300s that they have deployed around their energy infrastructure, which would of course imply that their energy infrastructure is now vulnerable. Should there be another strike from Israel towards Iran in case of an Iranian counter, do you feel those energy facilities will be the next target of Israeli attacks?
That's a very interesting question. They're certainly more vulnerable. So what we know at a minimum is that in terms of calculating in Tehran, if you're a military planner, if you're the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khomeini, you have to consider that. And we have another angle here that to consider with respect to your question, which is the position of the United States. Now, of course, we here in the United States, we're coming up, of course, to this very important election, including the presidential election, but that will be over soon. And we know the context here is that the Biden administration asked the Israelis not to strike the oil facilities, not to strike Iran's nuclear program, those facilities either, and Israel complied with that. Also, the U.S. deployed very sophisticated air defense system, the THAAD system, to Israel with U.S. troops. So what does it mean? It means that if Iran attacks again, it's attacking at a time when the U.S., when Israel also has strong political support, because the Israelis listened to what the Americans were asking. The Israelis demonstrated their freedom of maneuver and their ability and determination to strike Iran, but they did as the Americans requested. This was probably a joint decision that they made. And so the Israelis are in a strong political position. And let's not forget, there are U.S. troops on the ground now in Israel. So if Iran targets that system and any U.S. troops are killed, it will be very bad for Iran. And one more thing, again, for Iranian planners to have to consider. Please.
Mr. Joseph, now there are reports suggesting that Iran is preparing for an unimaginable response to Israel's attacks, and it may just happen before the US elections. And US has also warned that if Iran does any such thing before the 5th of November, US will consider it as a direct interference with the US election process. So there is a certain strong warning coming in from the US there as well. Of course, the next few days are going to be extremely crucial for the entire West and, of course, the West Asian part of the world as well. Thank you so much for joining in, Dr. Joseph. Always a pleasure speaking with you, and there will be lots more to discuss in days to come.